Hello, BookTube. Well, I mentioned the other day that the Bean had the trots on Sunday night going into Monday morning and needed to go outside regularly so that she could very daintily squirt out the devil's brew. And she wasn't quite over that on Monday morning, first thing on Monday morning, and that, of course, ruined my plans. I had appointments for the morning, and I had to just email and cancel all of them because can't leave the Bean if she's feeling indisposed. I remember all too well, all too bitterly clearly, all of the years when I worked in retail, when I did have to leave my dogs, when I was on the schedule and had to be there at a certain time and had no option about it, even if they were feeling poorly. I believe you me, that was on my mind on Monday morning. I was thinking, if I still worked in retail and Frida were feeling this rocky, I'd have to leave her and just hope for the best because I'd be gone for 10 hours. That isn't true anymore, and so I canceled. I postponed that plan, those appointments for Monday, and that shifted them to Tuesday. And that means that I was back to back with appointments that were already in place for today. So I was out and about early. The Bean is fine now. I know that's the only thing that you're interested about. She's fine. It was just something odd she ate. I'm trying to figure out what it was so that we don't, duplicate it by mistake. And it ought to be easy. My pointer, Malin, my sweet, beautiful Malin Moore, used to eat anything off the ground. Rocks, even, sometimes. She'd just compulsively eat garbage off the ground. So when she got sick, I never had any idea what it was. Never. I would never even know half the stuff that she just hoovered up off the sidewalk. But Frida has no interest in doing that. She doesn't do anything like that. So it has to be something that I myself fed her. And I'm trying to pinpoint what that is so it doesn't happen again. But she recovered completely. So I went out this morning, and when I was done with all of my poking and prodding, I was ready to go to the Brattle bookshop right up the street. And so I did, and I got a bunch of books. And you might think, surely you couldn't have got a bunch of books since you went to the Brattle yesterday. But that's the kind of shop that the Brattle is. Not only is the overturn, the turnover of books really impressive, so that there's new stuff being brought up from the basement, unpacked and priced all the time. But also, the outdoor sale lot next to the shop is thousands of books. Thousands of them. And they're on shelves from the ground all the way to, 8 feet up in the air. So they're not double stacked or anything, but you can still miss things. No matter how industriously you probe around, you can still miss things. And you can also have second thoughts about things. You can see something and say, boy, you get back to your home and you think, oh, I have all these books, but I'm thinking about that one I didn't get, and boy, I wish I had. Can't tell you how many times I've made a return trip to the Brattle specifically because of that. So I went and found a whole bunch of stuff, and they demonstrate quite a few of the axioms of the Brattle. The number one axiom of the Brattle, of course, that I say to people is that when it comes to the sale lot outside, it's governed by kismet. You can't push it. You can't go there with an agenda. You can't go to the sale lot and say, well, okay, I'm going to find lots and lots of D.H. Lawrence. Not that you'd want to, but if you did, you can't do that, because if you do that, not only will you not find D.H. Lawrence, but you won't find anything else either. You have to be open to the karmic rhythms of the sale lot. And if you are, you will find an armload of stuff in half an hour, easily. But there are a couple of other axioms that go along with the Brattle. One is the Brattle will provide. I say that all the time on this channel, that if I encounter a lack somewhere, if I'm looking at something, reading something, whether it's on this channel or whether it's on my couch, and I'm reading a book and I think I'm reading some assertion by an author, I think, how do you know that, Seymour? And I put my finger in the page and go right back to the bibliography and the notes to find out, okay, why are you saying that? What is that based on? And then I check that note against the bibliography and find the book. And then I think, boy, sometimes I'll think, boy, that's a book I really wish I had. And then I look around and I realize I don't have it. And the first thought that's crossed my mind for decades is the Brattle will provide. Sooner or later, that will show up at the Brattle. So that's another axiom that was demonstrated today. And the third one, as I've often mentioned, is that the Brattle, because the outdoor carts are so cheap, $1, $3, or $5, it gives you an infinite opportunity for second chances. Where you pass up something for one reason or another, you're going to get a second chance at it, and that is just great. And I found a lot of those today, including, I guess, what most people who don't have anything like the Brattle in their neighborhood would regard as the number one thing about it, which is the sale lot allows you to get lots of great stuff for dirt cheap, for $3 a piece. That is incredible. And these first two are definitely an example of that. These things were very expensive when they came out. And I've had them from time to time, but as soon as I saw them, I realized I didn't. This is the Library of America, a great nonprofit reprint endeavor that sewn binding, acid-free pages, built-in bookmarks, commemorating great works of American literature. And they have generated a huge number of titles by now. You could fill a floor-to-ceiling bookcase with them, and it would be a mighty pretty thing, and it would be the reading of a lifetime. If you wanted to just do that and do nothing else, you'd have an infinite variety of stuff to read for the rest of your life. And I found two of those out at the sale lot for $3 a piece. And they're gorgeous. Look at this. They're both boxes. These lovely individual box editions for the Library of America. This is Henry Adams' History of the United States in its very early years. Henry Adams, of course, will be best known for The Education of Henry Adams. And Mont Saint-Michel and Chartres, and this is actual history that he wrote, and it's fantastically good. It's of a very, very much of a Gibbon-esque prose style. It's got long Macaulay-esque periods to it. It's gorgeous prose, but it's not. What I'm trying to say is it's prose of a type that nobody in the 21st century writes or reads. So it takes a bit of getting used to remember a different rhythm of writing prose. It's a rhythm of writing even nonfiction that is gone completely now. Even serious scholars and serious heavyweight intellectuals don't write this way anymore. That doesn't make it boring. Far from it. It's thrilling. Once you get used to it, it's thrilling. And I have had this in the black spine Library of America with the red, white, and blue banner across the middle. And I've seen these, but I think these individual box sets are even more expensive than the black spine things. I have to ask Mark Richardson. You probably know better than I would. I think they're even more expensive than these. But I found both of these volumes for $3 a piece. So I grabbed them because I don't have this, and I probably could stand to reread it, and it's always worthwhile to have. So that was fantastic. Then the next three are a case of the Brattle will provide. Bit of a long shot for the Brattle will provide, but I have seen the Brattle hit longer shots than this. I mentioned on this channel a while ago, when was it? I mentioned a while ago that there was once upon a time a very popular series of books by Arthur Train, the Tut books, about Ephraim Tut, the down-home, ordinary lawyer guy, an ordinary person, a hero's person, a working man's lawyer guy, who was nevertheless incredibly intelligent, incredibly inventive, and sly in the courtroom, always in the cause of right, always in the cause of good. And Arthur Train was trained as a lawyer and worked as a lawyer for a long time, but he started writing as well. He started writing fiction and little bits of nonfiction, and it started to create a sort of a separate siloed income for him. And when he invented the likable lawyer Ephraim Tut, everything changed. Tut became, I mean, he's gone now. He's completely forgotten now. No one will ever reprint these books. But once upon a time, 100 years ago, he was an absolutely universally known fictional character, like Sherlock Holmes. An absolutely universally known character. America's lawyer, America's favorite lawyer, was a fictional character. Much like a generation later, Perry Mason was, but only because of the TV show, whereas Tut was just a literary creation, and a wonderful literary creation. And I mentioned, I think I mentioned this in connection with a crappy little paperback that I found of a few Tut stories. I mentioned, you know, probably at the time I mentioned, gee, isn't it a shame that I'm never going to see these? Isn't it a shame that they're never going to be reprinted? And I might have even said the Brattle will provide, but I probably wasn't believing it. And I'm still in a little bit of disbelief that I found not one, not two, but three Tut books with these Mylar dust jackets. Now, there were a whole bunch more than these. There's a whole shelf of these things. but I'll take 3. Absolutely, I will. We have Tut Tut, Mr. Tut. I wonder if this gives you anything. Does this show you anything? No, it doesn't. It's all just, this is what books used to be back in the 20s. They were all advertisements all over the place, just for more of the publisher's wares. These are wonderful courtroom stories. This came out in 1945. Oh no, this was copyright 1920, but this edition was 1945. And these are sort of, in a way, American cousins of John Mortimer's Rumpole stories, which are also about a virtuous courtroom warrior, although they are a lot more cynical and can be a lot darker and more dyspeptic, whereas these are brighter and lighter and so much more enjoyable for a pick-me-up. Although Rumpole picks me up all the time. I love them. But I also got Tut and Mr. Tut. And this thing, look at this beautiful cover. This is by Arthur William Brown, is the artist here. This is Old Man Tut. And there is our old hero, and he is dealing, I'm guessing, with a concerned father and a cutie patootie son, where they try to figure out something or other. And I think Old Man Tut is a collection of stories, and I'm pretty sure that Tut and Mr. Tut are as well. But I'm gonna have so much fun revisiting these things. Amazing. Only at the Brattle would I find these, and out in a sale lot instead of in a collectible section or whatever. Just amazing that I would find these, and I'll take it. I will definitely take it. I would, of course, ideally prefer if I found 10 Tut books, but I'll take 3. Absolutely. At least now I have some, instead of getting a crappy paperback that can't survive even one reading and sort of wishing that I had more. So that was great. That was a perfect example of the Brattle will provide. And then another thing that I want at the Brattle, I don't look for it. If you develop a conscious desire to look for something, you will not find it. You will jinx the whole experience. So I don't look for it. But always when I'm shopping at the Brattle, I hope for so-called keepers. Books that I know I'm going to keep for the rest of my life, as opposed to cycling through. Now, there's no problem with that, with cycling through. These things aren't expensive, so you can take a gamble out in the Brattle sale lot. But ideally, I would like to keep things. I would like to find things and keep them. And I found 2 that are keepers. They are not only coming into the permanent collection, but they're coming onto this bookshelf. I'm going to have to do something with this bookshelf because I've found a few of these lately, and there isn't a whole lot of room here. This bookshelf right behind me and Lord Ganesha is mostly, except for that, the top shelf there is those old Bantam classics. But only because the top shelf is sort of, I don't know if you can tell, it's sort of staggered. See that? You've got this little shelf here and then a tiny shelf up above it. So it doesn't work for hardcovers. Neither of those top shelves do. So I sort of sequestered that. That's gone. I don't consider it. But these other shelves all the way to the floor are book reviews, book essays, prefaces, epilogues, that sort of thing that I love. My own writing, my own profession. It's the kind of writing that I do every day. And I made a collection not for vanity's sake, but because I actually use these books. I use them a lot. Oh my, I use them a lot. Practically every week, I'm prowling this bookcase. I may need to give it more room. Instead of doing book Jenga where I try to figure out what's going to fit and what's not, I may need to take everything off here and put these somewhere else in this room where there's just more room. I may have to do that. Not an unpleasant task at all. That's a whole afternoon of moving books around. I'm not complaining at all. Those of you who are book addicts will know that's a pleasant amount of work. But just the other day, I was writing my review of Blake Bailey's biography of Philip Roth. As an example, one example among many, I could give you dozens in the course of a month. I was writing that review, and I, of course, wanted to know what had been said about Roth by 24 critics. And so I spent a long time at this shelf just consulting one person after another. Not to steal, I already knew what I thought about the book, but to sort of leaven it, sort of to feel like I am part of one huge critical conversation, which is true. A lot of these critics aren't alive anymore. And yet their blurbs and their essays live on. And that will be true for me. There will always be printed paperback copies of books that have my name on them and a blurb by me. And somewhere down the line, someone might notice. They might pick up, a dozen books over the course of 2 years and realize, hey, the one blurb that I'm really kind of liking is this Steve Donoghue person. I wonder who he was. It's an ongoing conversation, and I'm humble. I'm happy to be a part of that conversation. But that was a perfect example where I was using these books to find out what other people have thought of Roth and what they've said about him, and it helped a lot. And that'll be true next week, next month, absolutely. April sees, for instance, one example off the top of my head, but I guarantee you there'll be 100 places to go on this bookcase. There's a new biography of Edward Saeed coming out in early April, the author of Orientalism. A much vexed figure that I would be willing to bet half the people on this bookcase have written about. I bet I have at least 200 pages of prose about him on this bookcase. And that's great. That's absolutely great. Like, for instance, I wish I had it here. Just yesterday, I showed you Imaginary Homelands by Salman Rushdie, who's famous for his novels, but who has written a large amount of critical stuff. He's got a new essay collection coming out in May that collects those pieces. And Imaginary Homelands is an earlier essay collection, and in it there are a couple of pieces on Edward Said. And he won't be the only one. There'll be lots of other people here that do. And that's why I use this bookcase. But anyway, I know that those are keepers, and I found not one, but two of those. First is Derek Walcott, the great poet. Maybe not so great person, but the great poet, Derek Walcott. And this is What the Twilight Says, a volume I don't think I've ever seen before, which is a little collection of his writings on literature. On who do we have here? Joseph Brodsky, Robert Frost, Ted Hughes, Robert Lowell, V.S. Naipaul, all sorts of stuff like that. It'll be fascinating to read these. I don't think I've read any of them, so that's going to be wonderful. And then this next one is something that I have read before, and I've probably read every piece in here at least once or twice, but I didn't have it, and I very much want it. It's this uniform Random House edition of Forwards and Afterwards by W.H. Auden, and I don't know if I can grab it here. This is in a uniform view with the Random House collected poems of Auden. That I've been spending a lot of time with those collected poems of Auden, and I've been really enjoying it. I really, really have. And this is exactly this. It's his commissioned book stuff, prefaces, book reviews, New York Times profiles, that sort of thing. And a lot of these are virtuoso. I actually, as much as I have been loving that collected poetry, I like this aspect of Auden more than anything else that he writes. I have, oh no, it's out of reach. I have a crappy paperback of The Dyer's Hand, which is his great essay collection. And what I really want is a hardcover with a dust jacket of The Dyer's Hand. That would be great, because I go to that thing often and it's falling apart. This will, when I reinforce the dust jacket, this will be impregnable. This will last a while. But you can see the problem, right? This is two more books in addition to all the ones I've found in the last 2 weeks that go on this bookcase. That's not tenable. But that was great to find. Absolutely. And then we have some biography, and then we'll be done. I promise. And this first one is, again, in one of these neat Mylar dust jackets so that I don't have to worry about the condition of this thing. And it repeats something from yesterday. Yesterday we saw George Gissing, the novelist George Gissing, wrote a critical study of Charles Dickens. And I got it because I love Gissing when he's really great, and because I feel guilty that I don't love Dickens. and I thought maybe there's a way to sneak in the back door through biography or critical studies or whatnot. I found another biography of Dickens that I've never read, even though this biographer in his heyday was the most popular biographer in the world and wrote a ton of biographies, just a ton of them, on like a dozen different people. I wish I had them all. The ones I've read, I've really enjoyed. But this one is Dickens. This is Hesketh Pearson, his biography of Dickens, which is, if I remember reading about this thing, this is more along the lines of what we saw yesterday, kind of a critical biography through prose rather than all the mistresses, all the children, all the bouts of influenza, all the teeth pulled, all that sort of thing. I think this concentrates more on Dickens the artist than on Dickens the man. And there's our pretentious author striking a pose. I will definitely take it, no matter what. don't know what to expect here. Sometimes when you see an oddity like this at the Brattle, you can kind of hope that maybe the person who got rid of this at the Brattle got rid of a lot of other Hesketh Pearson books. That would be awesome if that happened. We'll see. It might not be true. It might be that it's a Dickens person. It might be that the person who got rid of this got rid of that Gissing book as well, but that it's all Dickens and nobody else. We shall see. But that was great to find as a biography. And then this next one was probably the find of the day. And it is a collection of little biographical sketches. It's not a big biography of any one person. Instead, it is great. I have only heard about this thing. I've never actually seen it, even at the Boston Athenaeum. And now I have a copy for $3. And no, I think this was $1. This is Analecta Biographica. This is a handful of New England portraits by Walter Muir Whitehill. And that is our author in front of a portrait of himself. He was forever and ever, in addition to all the other literary achievements that he had in his life, he was forever and ever the main personage at the Boston Athenaeum, a private lending library here in Boston, that has to be seen to be believed. Feel free to Google image search what the inside of the Athenaeum looks like. You will be astounded. And it has been a weird and eccentric and really heavyweight locus for intellectual figures for a long, long time, long before there was a Boston Public Library. And Walter Muir Whitehill was sort of its guiding eminence. He wrote Boston Topographical History, that was for a long time is still a great Boston history. And he also wrote a biography of Ernest King that we have seen recently, I think in 2021. I don't think I have it within reach, but he wrote a lot of stuff. And what we have here in this book is a long collection of miniature portraits. Each chapter is a miniature portrait of people. And I know these names so well. I know so many of these names so well. I've even had the privilege of meeting some of them. But a lot of them not. Jacob Worth, for instance. Those of you who might know your recent Boston history will remember that an old restaurant named Jacob Worth closed. But that's the Jacob Worth that restaurant is profiled in here. And Ernest King, the admiral who was the subject of the book that I just talked about. But also, the last person on the list is Samuel Elliott Morison. And one of the names on the list, let me see if I can show it to you here, is Charles Elliott Goodspeed, who was a bookseller extraordinaire, who was the king of booksellers and book dealers in Boston at Goodspeed's Bookshop, and whose son took over that job and did as great a job as his father did. And that will be the first one that I go to. The first one I go to will be the Charles Goodspeed profile. Charles Goodspeed wrote a book called Yankee Bookseller that I really wish I had a copy of. The Brattle actually has a copy of Yankee Bookseller up on the second floor in the Books About Books section, but it is in terrible condition. It's not salvageable. It would look terrible if you did. I don't know why they kept it on the shelf. I guess they don't have the heart to get rid of it. And George Goodspeed, his son, also wrote a book, and I don't have that either, and that's not at the Brattle. I don't have a copy of either Goodspeed book, but I never met the father, but I knew the son really well, and spent a lot of time at Goodspeed's, a lot of time. So that's be one of the first ones that I read here. But this is an absolute treat for the heart and soul of intellectual Boston in the 20th century. To write about these people who are also famous Bostonians, that's just incredible. To find this, and to find it for $1, that is just amazing. So that's it. That was our Brattle haul for today. We have Analecta Biographica by Walter Muir Whitehill. We have Dickens by Hesketh Pearson, another Dickens book. You'd think, are any of these going to work together to get me to pull Martin Chuzzlewit down off the shelf? I don't know. I can hope. Then we have, let's see, what was this? What the Twilight Says, literary commissioned prose work by Derek Walcott. We have Forwards and Afterwards by W.H. Auden. We have Tut and Mr. Tut. We have Tut, Mr. Tut And we have Old Man Tut with this great period cover. I mean, the idea of getting these things is great enough on its own, but to get in these original hardcovers, even better. And finally, Henry Adams' 2-volume history in boxed Library of America. Fantastic. Just fantastic. To find those for dirt cheap, just a song, is just a joy. so that's it. I don't know when I'm going back to the Brattle. I'd be willing to bet it's not any time this week. Which means that Mark Richardson might pull ahead with book hauls. He has that big red truck because he can drive wherever he likes. But it's not a competition. I don't think I'm going to be getting back to the Brattle. I don't think I'm going to be doing book shopping of any kind for the rest of this week. We shall see, but I doubt it. I think it'll probably be next week. But I couldn't resist showing you all these things because I'm going to be pouring over them. I'm going to give myself an hour. When I stop this video and take the bean for a little walk, then I'm going to give myself an hour to play with these books, and then I have to buckle down to work. Absolutely have to buckle down to work. 6 hours of work should just about do it. I have 2 deadlines today, plus I've got to put all of the finishing touches on my project, Camp NaNoWriMo. That's going to take time. No idea how much time that's going to take. So I have lots and lots of other stuff to do. Plus, of course, I'm deep in the planning of my May issue at Big Canoe News. In case any of you missed yesterday's announcements, I am the new books editor of a newspaper, an actual full-color print newspaper in northern Georgia called Big Canoe News. I am their new books editor. I will leave a link down below to my inaugural issue. In the drop-down menu of Big Canoe, you want to look for the book section under News, not Arts and Entertainment. But there I am on the masthead as the books editor for the first time in decades. And I have a May issue to produce. No way around that. It comes out once a month. The paper comes out once a month. I'll leave a link. Feel free to subscribe to the electronic version. The electronic version is every single bit of what's in the print version, and there's no paywall. It's completely free. But also feel free to subscribe to the print newspaper if you feel like getting Steve Donoghue on your doorstep at the beginning of every month. It's $30 for 12 big, colorful issues. And in the midst of every one of those issues is going to be, in my opinion, one of the most formidable little book sections anywhere in the range of American newspapers. The Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times have a lot more space and a lot more money than I do at Big Canoe. But the quality of the reviews will go toe-to-toe with anything. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm hoping that it strikes a nerve. I'm hoping that people like it. I'm hoping that you like it. So feel free. Feel free to go and partake. But anyway, I have that to plan as well. So I don't have all night to be playing around with these books. I don't have time to do that. The Tut books are going to be a strong temptation. I must resist it. That's all. I must resist it. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.